Hello, everyone, and welcome back to
Wedding Season!
Yay! So this is our 4-week show here on the Financial Diet in celebration of, well, wedding season. Summer is upon us, and with summer comes wedding season, and with wedding season comes financial chaos and catastrophe, dissolved friendships, fractured families, and just generally making all-around terrible decisions in the name of having a cute little party. So I am here with
Ashley C. Ford, author and podcast host.
And a person who generally has excellent taste in all matters, financial and otherwise, because you have perhaps slightly more empathy than I do about unfortunate financial decision making, which I think is an important balance to have here. But you also suffer no fools.
I don't.
So last week we talked all about brides and couples who are imposing, let's just say, financial and logistical dynamics on their wedding guests that, in my opinion, should be illegal. And this week we are going to be talking about the extension of that, which is to say Bachelorette/bridal culture. But before we get into it, I want to take one quick second to thank the sponsor of this entire series, Monarch. Obviously, in wedding season, we're talking a lot about bad financial decision making, but one thing that we should always be using to make the best financial decisions possible is a good budgeting app. And for me, who was a longtime Mint user, I have replaced Mint, RIP, no longer with us, with Monarch, which is truly an incredible tool, not just for budgeting, but for planning out your finances generally. Because your budgeting routine doesn't have to be a source of stress, and sometimes the key is just simplifying your process with the right tools. And you don't even have to take my personal endorsement for it, although I do use and love Monarch. Wall Street Journal named Monarch the best budgeting app, and it was named the best Mint replacement by Forbes. I agree. And even better, there's no ads, no selling your financial data to third parties, no premium-only upsells, just a clean, secure app that makes managing money feel way less overwhelming and actually kind of fun. And just in time for wedding season with Monarch for Couples, you and your partner can create a shared view of your finances, track progress together, and make your money dates a breeze. Join over 1 million other Monarch users by heading to monarchmoney.com or the link in our description box and get 50% off your annual plan with code TFD. So today we're here to talk about bridal showers and bachelorettes. Did you have bridesmaids?
I did.
Yeah.
I had 4 bridesmaids.
Mm-hmm.
My sister, my best friend, who's been my best friend since I was 14 years old, her daughter, my goddaughter, and my husband's sister.
Lovely, intimate. Did you do like the dresses and everything?
We did dresses. They found their own dresses.
I love that.
I basically said, these are the kinds of things that I would like you guys to wear, or these are the colors. What do you guys think? And they started putting some inspiration into a group chat, and somebody put a dress in there that was really reasonably priced. It was had a great size range, which was important for my wedding party, and they felt good about it. So I gave them the thumbs up. They all ordered it, got them altered if they needed to or wanted to. And that was it. I felt very much like all I wanted for my bridesmaids was for them to feel beautiful as well. And to have a dress that they could wear after my wedding.
Love that. I did not have bridesmaids, but if you only have a 27-person wedding,
yeah, then
it starts to feel really like MySpace top 8 coded, like whomst among you is the most favored. We did do a thing sort of akin to that, which is that I did not want to wear white for my wedding.
Mm-hmm. Neither did I.
Because the jig may be up here, but Mama was no virgin. I'm sorry, guys. No, but I am, pretty fair-skinned and have rosacea, so white is not my color, to say the least. It just doesn't, unless I've got a really good fake tan going, which you can't bet on in rural France.
You can't.
They don't have the skill sets necessary. But so I didn't want to wear white. So what we did was my husband and I both wore navy blue. Mm-hmm. And my dress was $80. I'll say that. But we both wore navy blue, and then all of our guests were asked to wear white on the day, which gave really culty vibes. Love the photos. It looks like we're all about to go, walk into a river or something. But, I have been a bridesmaid a few times, and I would say my friend, one of my close friends from high school, she really set the bar, which is to say, She did not give any specification other than, I would like something green. Any shade that you like is fine. You can wear pants. And in fact, two of the three of us wore pants. You can wear pants if you want to, any shade you want to, any kind of outfit you want to, just in some shade of green. And if you don't have a budget for it, I have a $200 stipend you can use.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's exactly
Period.
it. That's
it.
exactly what you should be doing in my estimation. And I mean, when I was a broke bridesmaid, people did that for me. One of my really good friends who I'm still really good friends with, Danielle, she was, I think, my second situation as a bridesmaid. She was my second bride who I stood up with. And she helped us buy the dress for everybody, actually. The dress was, I think, $160, and she put $100 down on everybody's dress. And she also got us all what ended up being my first real pearl earrings to wear during the wedding, this is important to me. I think if you want people to wear something very specific, you either have to buy it for them or you got to put something on it.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I think you can give people a general color guidance. I think you can give people, as long as you're doing something that generally falls within the range of like things people already either have or could very easily integrate into their wardrobe. But here's the thing. I will never forget, I was not at this wedding, so I can't claim this story, but my friend was at this wedding in New Jersey, which automatically meant these girls were tanned within an inch of their lives. Yeah. And I love a good fake tan, but it totally depends on the color of the dress.
In Jersey, they be out there trying to look like me.
No joke. And also when combined with like the very overly highlighted, poorly toned blonde hair, a lot of them are rocking. It makes for a strange color combination, to say the least. But on top of this, one thing that I think some brides are likely to inflict on their bridesmaids is a deeply unflattering color.
Yeah.
Like I've seen bridesmaids dresses in lilac, which is a tough color for many skin tones. I've seen them in gray. I've seen them in brown. Like I've seen all kinds of shit. But notably this one, my friend was at this wedding, and these poor women who were tanned and dyed and everything, so they were already pretty monochromatic to begin with, were put into salmon colored column halter neck dresses. So just like tubes of salmon, floor length. And my friend, when she sends me a picture, she goes, not these poor bridesmaids looking like salmon nigiri.
Oh my, yeah. I can picture it.
I was like, this feels like sabotage.
It does feel like sabotage. And I never wanted that for anybody in my wedding. And I don't know that at this point in my life, there's no way I would be putting up with that as somebody's bridesmaid. If they wanted me to stand up with them as their bridesmaid, I would have to put my foot down. I would have to say something. The first time I was a bridesmaid, I was 19. The dress was ugly, and I had to buy it out of my own pocket. And it was a really weird situation. And I walked away from that being like, I never want to be a bridesmaid again because of how poorly everything went. But I get older, and now I can hold my boundaries a little bit better. I have real good thoughts about these things. And every time I hear another story about somebody else's bachelorette or bridesmaid experience, it even more so confirms that I've made good choices these last 10 years.
100%. Also, paying like $300 for your own humiliation ritual is crazy.
I'm not doing that. I can get that for free.
But on the theme of making truly crazy financial decisions in honor of getting married, we have this story from a reader about a bridal shower. I was invited to a bridal shower which included a cover charge per guest as well as a registry. I didn't think much of that because I know these things can get expensive to throw. But when I got there, I found out that the items off of the registry were actually just going to be raffled off to the guests that evening who had already bought tickets. We were all expected to buy raffle tickets, the proceeds of which were to go towards paying for the wedding, with multiple reminders to make sure that we were buying those tickets throughout the evening. Also, there was a cash bar.
I'm trying to figure out how somebody turned a bridal shower into a multi-level marketing scheme. Like it's a terrible thing to do, but there's a vision in there. Somebody was cooking. Not with grease. Not with grease. But they were cooking, and I'm so confused about who they told this is what we're going to do, and that person was like, "Oh, great idea." Somebody had to be like, "Oh, that's a great idea. I should have done that." Why would they do that?
Because I really do believe that some people are just either, and I don't know if this is nature or nurture, but they don't have that shame chip. They just don't have the shame chip. Because
they need it.
You have identified, to your MLM point, you have identified four different ways to extract money from your supposed nearest and dearest, your friends and close friends and family. You have made them pay for a ticket, buy something off of your registry, buy raffle tickets to bet on the items from the registry, and also pay for their own drinks. You were like, how can we turn our marriage into a complete shakedown of our friends and family? And to that I say, well, A, it is clearly indicative of a culture that is not shaming people enough.
No.
Because the fact that they proceeded with that and they weren't getting punched in the face at that event is crazy to me. Like, someone needed to have said something. But the fact that, like, they're so okay to just so flagrantly take advantage of people, like, we're missing a shame chip.
We would have to be. We're also maybe missing empathy. Like, there's something going on there, because now I'm thinking about the fact that, like, the people who showed up for this were probably like looking around and looking at each other like, what's going on? What are we doing here? Like, what's happening? Or do you think let me ask you this. Do you think that the people who showed up acted like they were having fun even though they weren't? Or even though this was a objectively ridiculous situation?
I was once at a wedding that was crazy as hell. Not exactly in this way, but there were similar notes. Also, that couple got married super young and then divorced like 2 years later. So, I think the writing was on that wall. But there were many moments throughout the wedding that just spoke to a level of kind of chaos and disregard for guest experience. And, as I said in the last episode, a profound cheapness with the people who've paid good money to come to your wedding.
Yeah.
And I think that when you're a guest in this kind of situation, because if you show up to a bridal shower and you already had to pay a ticket and buy an item off the registry, and then you see those items up for raffle tickets and there's a DJ on the booth being like, buy raffle tickets, better buy those raffle tickets. I think you are so taken aback in the moment and experience such secondhand embarrassment that I genuinely feel like you just kind of rock with it once you're there.
Yeah.
And pretend like it's normal. And then but let's be clear, after the fact, you'll never stop talking shit about this.
Yes.
That is like, I'm sure there are multiple group chats that are to this day being sustained by that bridal shower. You know what I mean?
Like, every once in a while, somebody just drops, remember that bridal shower? And everybody's like, oh my God, once again.
And we are once again back to the cash bar of it all. Well, actually, the other one that we talked about was no booze whatsoever, even if you want to pay it with your own money. But I will tell you, and flame me in the comments if you want, I don't care. I stand on my truth, which is to say the worst thing you can do is a cash bar, because you know what you've just done there? Rather than not even give the option for alcohol, you've made a sort of caste system out of who can buy what. Yep. In my opinion, anytime someone enters a party that you are hosting, that you are throwing for them, there should not suddenly become like socioeconomic stratification, because for some people paying $50, $60 or whatever they're charging for a cash bar to get a couple drinks, because some of these, like you go to a bar in New York, a glass of wine is $18 sometimes. I mean, we're living in hell, but I'm just saying, like, if you go to a party and there's a cash bar that is a financial strain for you and not at all for the person next to you, you have just radically changed the experience of your event based on the socioeconomic status of your guest.
I agree. Which is why we had an open bar.
Of course you have. And the thing is, you don't even have to have like, sometimes you'll have an open bar with like absolutely everything. Sometimes you'll just do wine and beer.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want.
We did wine and beer. We knew who our people were.
Right.
We couldn't have hard liquor around because this A was part of the Fort Wayne Park system and we didn't want anybody messing something up. And B, we know who our people are.
Yeah.
So we said wine and beer only. And it still got rowdy in there.
There are also many options for, again, having a smaller effing wedding.
Yes.
If you are nickel and diming your guests that bad, have a smaller wedding.
Have a smaller wedding.
No one's making you invite this many people.
The smallest wedding you can have only requires 2 people. You and the other person.
Well, you technically need a witness in most states.
Do you?
I believe so. Yeah, you do. I think. Yeah, you do.
Did we have that? I hope we did.
Well, you had to legally. And as someone who's officiated a wedding, I got certified by like the church of like the fake internet church.
I have that too.
You do?
Yeah,
What
I've been
state?
ordained for like 10 years.
What state?
I was ordained in New York.
I was ordained in Pennsylvania. Shout out to my Pennsylvania viewers. If any of you guys need an officiant for your wedding, I'm not joking. I'll officiate a wedding.
I do it all the time.
Fun as hell.
At this point, I've done it like 3 times. I love it.
Not to brag.
I mean, at a real wedding, I've done it once. And when I say real wedding, I mean like a real like production. People have been invited. The other 2 were people who called me up and were like, "Hey, I think we're gonna get married today. Will you do it?" And I was like, "Yeah," which is different. That's a different situation.
I agree with that. I will say your outfit today, you could go officiate one right down the street if you wanted to.
I'm ready.
With the blazer, it's giving officiant.
I'm ready.
It kind of makes me regret not wearing one. Yeah. I was once at a very small city hall wedding where it was just like a couple of witnesses, and then we went out to like a dive bar and then an Italian restaurant. So it was fun. It's so funny too, because like for as much time and headache and ruined relationships as people are giving themselves for these weddings, like often the most beautiful and fun and wonderful ones are the ones that cost no money.
I agree. Had
very little planning, were just a beautiful, magical moment. Now that couple is divorced, RIP, which we probably could have seen that one coming. But you know what? Still one of the best weddings I've ever been to. Can't take that away. So this one was submitted by one of the TFD community, that she was asked to be a bridesmaid, but then required to pay $100 for her long-term boyfriend to be her +1. He had to buy a plate.
Really?
Yes. I think we need to be ending more friendships. That's
time.
The only thing I can take away from this.
It's time. We got to cut these weak ties.
We really do.
Because, I mean, and not all the time, okay? Like, it's important to have all different, I think, levels of friendship and acquaintanceship and all of that in a community-based situation. But a wedding is specific. And the people who come to your wedding should be people who you want in that room.
Right.
And I feel like if you want me here, and not just me here, but me to stand up with you on your wedding day, and this is my long-term partner, and you're going to make me come out of my pocket $100 for them to eat at the wedding? Absolutely not. That's an egregious request and quite selfish and just icky. It's icky. It makes me, I don't know. I'm like, didn't we all grow up watching like A Christmas Carol and stuff? Did y'all like want to be Scrooge? Did y'all see Michael Caine playing Scrooge and we're like, icon, that's who I'm trying to be when I grow up. Diva alert. Is that how that made you feel? I don't know. I can't.
What's interesting to me about this story, but I do think speaks to a lot of what we're encountering here, is that while some of the wedding shenanigans are like, I've had to pay, $10,000 to go to freaking Fiji for my friend's wedding, and what should I do? And that's obviously over the top and ludicrous. But I guess you could see there is a kind of crude logic in the sense of like, I'm just going to have an insane rich person wedding and get on board, bitch. And realistically, probably those people couldn't go out of pocket for all of their guests and be like, I'm going to have a $250,000 wedding or whatever. So I think it's not cool at all, but at least there's a method to that madness.
Yeah.
$100 is not going to make or break anything.
No.
It will not have an impact on the overall budget of an event like this.
No.
And it is something you could afford to cover if you're having a wedding. I think, period, any kind of wedding, you could afford to cover $100 for one of the closest women in your life that you're asking to stand next to you on that day.
I agree.
And to me, when we talk about profound cheapness, that is the most, to me, offensive kind of example, which is to say, like, you know that this will not make a difference, but you're going to drill down on that cheapness while someone is going so far out of their way. It's the same vibe as people who will like nickel and dime for the smallest thing that, like, again, will, like, they won't even, like, they'll get you a coffee and then send you a $3 Venmo 20 seconds later.
If I ever even seem to be becoming that person, as my friend, I give you full permission to smack the hell out of me.
Cha to the back of the neck.
And remind me who I am.
Yeah, because a parasite has taken over at that point.
It would have to.
It's like a yerk.
I'm definitely a pod person at that point. I'm definitely a pod person at that point. Because what do you... if it doesn't make a difference either way, so I guess at that point, are you doing it on what? Principle? What's the principle?
It's like the people, and we hear stories like this all the time in the TFD community, who will like invite people over to their house for dinner and then charge them.
What is this, Norway?
No. No kidding. Talk about a place that I'm like, no offense to my Nordic followers here, but just not for me. Nothing is waiting for me in the Nordic countries, I fear. Not with that kind of hospitality.
I don't think so.
When they were talking about like people, they're like, when I was growing up in Sweden, and if the family sat down to dinner, I was asked to go home, or I just sat there while they ate together. And that's like apparently common.
Yeah. Super common. Because like, it's the idea that like, well, they'll say, why should I be expected to feed another? It's rude to come into my home and expect to eat. And I think that's, I don't know how else to say it, real, like, extra white? I don't know. Like,
let's not put this on all white people.
I'm not going to put it on all white people. But it's that Nordic one. Like, maybe it's not them. Maybe, no, I don't know what it is.
It's potato white. It's potato versus tomato whites.
Okay.
The potato whites, you go up from a certain, like, latitude, and you start encountering crazier and crazier lacks of like community and empathy and like sort of social norms like that. Yeah. But like you go to like an Italian person's house or like a Greek person's house.
They're forcing food.
They'll force food
from the minute you walk
in. Get that funnel out of the cupboard. Like, shoving the spanakopita in.
Manja. Yeah. And it's like, it's constant. And I think I just maybe... It's not that one is necessarily better than the other, but I know what feels better to me. And what feels better to me is to feed people. I love to feed people when they come into my home.
As a half potato white, half tomato white, first of all, you can tell, so these are two culturally pretty Catholic families on both sides, but you got like Canadian Irish Catholic on one side, and then you got Italian Catholic on the other side. Talk about one having way more riz than the other. The Italian Catholics, they're having fun with it, but also like the spirit of those families, those cultures, the way that they welcome you, the way that they perceive what it means to be a guest and means to be a host. Yeah. I'm not saying that there's no example of that in like Northern Europe or whatever, but I do think there are clearly cultures for whom the act of both receiving people and being received is like so sort of easy to push to the side or even sort of looked down upon. Like you would not be expected to be fed, and it would be rude if you were. And that to me, I agree with you, is like, and you know, it even will go to certain extremes, like, in Persian culture, for example, they have the concept of like taraf, where like you will literally not let anyone, they can't even open a door, they can't do anything. You're just, you do everything for your guest, and you'll pull money out of your own pocket and throw, you know what I'm saying? Like you put yourself out to such an extent that sometimes is like untenable at that extreme. But for me anyway, like culturally, when I look at American culture and I see the way that like really individualist, real lack of hospitality kind of white person culture has begun to really permeate a lot of this, it's Doesn't bode well.
It doesn't bode well, and it's not very fun.
No, it's
not
dreary
very
as
fun.
hell.
And I like to have fun.
I like to have fun, and I also like to feel, and that's what's so lacking in so many of these wedding stories is just the insane lack of hospitality.
I agree.
And the insane lack of just having fun and feeling like people are glad you came.
I guess I always just felt like if I was going to invite people into my home or into an event that I was a part of or throwing a celebration, that their fun was as important as my fun. Like, I want to have fun. And I knew at my wedding I wanted to have fun. I knew at my bachelorette party that I wanted to have fun. But I wanted them to have fun too. And it would not have been fun for me if they weren't having fun as well.
And there's also, like, when you look at, like, for example, Indian wedding culture.
Yeah.
Now, my husband has been invited to many an Indian wedding we could not attend because they were in India.
Right.
And or conflicted with our own travel, which is much to my chagrin. But these are not people that Mark is, like, hugely close to. But It's like, come one, come all. We're having this amazing party. I like working with you. Like, come join this 3-day celebration where we're going to have, endless food and dancing and music and all of this stuff. And it's like, the more the merrier. I would rather put myself out to ensure everyone has a good time. Invite, you'd rather overspend a little bit than leave someone out, and just like, this extraordinary generosity. Even the invitations are fun, and I think, it's hard not to get into some kind of cultural comparison, but there clearly is, when a culture does not embrace what it means to have guests and what a gift that is, to have people who show up for you. I really think it hurts the culture deeply. And I see it happening in American culture.
I agree because, we don't want to be codependent, but we are connected.
Yes.
And pretending that we aren't just because it makes us more comfortable isn't going to change the fact. And I think when you try to change the fact, whether that be by culture or legislative rule or anything else, so that like people don't come together as much or people don't get to have the kind of interactions that we love and feel entitled to, we all suffer for it.
1,000%.
Everybody suffers for it.
So as a last note, because we have to touch on the bachelorette parties.
Did you have a bachelorette party?
So my husband and I did a bachelorette because, again, half of the people had to travel. And we did the same thing where we like rented a house and we all met in a destination. And it was really nice.
That sounds fun.
It was like a week's vacation. We went to San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Sounds amazing.
Did you?
Yeah, but much like the wedding, it was one of those things where one of my type A friends were like, "Are you going to have a bachelorette party?" And I was like, I was thinking about it, but it's a lot of work. And she was like, Can I do it? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, what would you want to do? And I was like, I just want to invite, like, I think I had 10 ladies. But it wasn't like a big let's go somewhere thing. We literally got a couple of hotel rooms in downtown Indianapolis at a nice hotel. And I think like one day we got massages and brunch, and went to the art museum. And then we went out to some bars and clubs on the Mass Ave Strip that night. And I think then maybe the next day we went out to breakfast, and that was it. And that was my dream bachelorette situation.
Love it.
I just wanted to hang out with my friends for a day, doing only fun stuff that felt good or seeing things that were beautiful, and then free them and let them go about their lives in a way that like wasn't too obstructive.
Which is what you want. Which is the opposite of what happened to one of our community members who could not afford to attend the destination bachelorette trip, so was disinvited from being a bridesmaid. Removed from the wedding party.
No, we don't do that. We don't do that.
At this point, I think, as I said earlier, we got to start, trimming a little bit with these friendships, because this is not a friendship. Yeah. But if someone disinvites you, if someone says, oh, you can't come to, Punta Mita or whatever, so you don't get to be my bridesmaid anymore, then you don't go to that wedding.
You don't go.
We're done.
Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah. You've been, what's the best word for it?
Punished for your socioeconomic status.
I mean, yeah, you've been punished for your socioeconomic status. You've been discarded for your socioeconomic status. I don't think that that dynamic or that sort of interaction can exist inside of a real friendship. If I thought that my friends would discard me from like celebration, from standing with them on their wedding day because of what I couldn't afford, that would destroy me. That would be really hard. And honestly, that's what happened with the first wedding that I was a bridesmaid in. I was not the one who couldn't afford it, but one of the bridesmaids couldn't, and the bride threw a fit about the fact that this person couldn't afford to participate the way the rest of us were. And I sort of, in a certain way, I looked at her differently. She never returned to a certain place in my mind after that happened.
You shouldn't need to have a financial reason to say no to something.
I agree.
You're allowed to ask people to spend $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. The average cost of a bachelorette now, I believe, is over $2,000. The trip. You are allowed to ask for that, and then people are allowed to say no, and they don't have to give you a reason.
I might be out the bridesmaid game. $2,000 a pop.
And that's average. It goes way above that. We had a girl on the Financial Confessions who spent $10,000. Yep, on her credit card debt. Apparently, it was in Miami, and apparently one night, she doesn't drink alcohol, but one night they went out to one of like the clubs in Miami, and everyone else got, bottle service and shit, and it's like the kind of club where it's like thousands of dollars minimum at the VIP table, and she got left with like $1,000+ bill for having one Sprite.
$1,000 Sprite, Chelsea?
Now listen, I'm sitting here drinking a crispy fountain Sprite, and it is worth $1,000 to me. But that should be my choice. I shouldn't be stuck with that bill.
You shouldn't be stuck with that bill. I feel so cognizant of other people in these moments. I don't know how you walk into that situation and walk away from that situation feeling like I did the right thing.
You mean the other people in that situation?
The other people in that situation, not her.
Because a lot of people are assholes, and they really would just rather get one over on you financially. Like, people are cheap, and like in a way that like is not necessarily even tied to their financial status. It's about like, they don't care about other people. They really don't. They're just happy to pay less themselves.
Yeah, it's not frugality. It's just cheapness.
Which are two different things. But on the subject of wedding guests and sometimes their misdeeds, the next episode of Wedding Season is going to be all about wedding guest culture. Thank you so much, Ashley. And we'll see you guys next week on another episode of Wedding Season.